everyone, it's Henriette and Heather, and welcome to a Millennial Podcast where we dive deep into the life of our 30s.
We'll discuss our struggles, dreams, relationships, icks, and anything millennials can relate to. Sit back, relax, and let's head on this journey together. We are 30s Unfiltered.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode. Today, we're discussing one of the biggest life questions out there, to have or not to have kids. As you may know, Heather has a 12-year-old son, and I do not have kids. So we will be talking about our own experience and thoughts around this question, as well as the effects of societal expectations and eternal pressure from family and friends. Whether you feel your uterus clock ticking, find yourself in the process of IVF, already pregnant, already have 3 kids, do not want to have kids at all, or simply have no idea what you want, this episode is for you. So obviously, I'm going to have a lot of questions for you today. I'm going to get into it. And
Okay.
So we know, and we've talked about it a few times, that you're a single mom, and Mason turned 12 this year. Little tween.
Yes.
And you got pregnant when you were 19 or 20? Okay, see, that was
So
wrong.
on my 21st birthday, I had made an announcement to my family that I was pregnant on
Wow.
my birthday. Yeah.
So they were like, "Why aren't you drinking?" Like, "Oh, actually, surprise."
Yeah.
Wow.
Everyone was fucking pissed. They were pissed.
Like that experience, like what was that like? Because I mean, I already knew that your family was not a huge fan of the fact that you were pregnant that young. But like in terms of your like physical and emotional part of like the pregnancy itself, and not like excluding your family's feelings and thoughts about the whole thing. Like how did you feel? Like what was that experience for you
I
being that
was
young?
terrified. I was
Mhm.
terrified. I didn't know what to expect. All I knew was that this guy loved me so much and I loved him. And he said that we were going to get married. He sold me this dream. And of course, it didn't fall through. He was 23 at the time and it was just a hot
A
mess.
whirlwind.
It wasn't the best time of my life. I think at one point during the pregnancy, I was suicidal. I was going through depression. I didn't feel like I was supported. It just felt like a huge disappointment. Again, because like the initial reaction of everybody, yeah, at my
Right, it
birthday.
wasn't a good one.
Now talking about it right now, like that was a monumental moment in my life when I announced my pregnancy. And
Mhm.
everybody was just so disappointed in me, and I felt like I was a failure. Like I had failed.
What about like were you in pain? Like did you have any like struggles? Was it an easy pregnancy?
It was the easiest pregnancy. I just gained so much weight. I was
Mhm.
about 130. I was 130 pounds. And then by the end of the pregnancy, I was 210 pounds. Everyone kept
Wow.
feeding me. I was just eating all the time. And so I just gained so
Wow.
much weight. So much weight. Isn't that
Wow.
crazy? 210. The doctor that I was
Yeah,
with at
yeah.
the time and doing all my
Mhm.
checkups, they never said anything about my weight gain until they were on vacation and I saw a different doctor. And again, this is before I became a nurse. I saw a different
Right.
doctor and she
Mhm.
was just like, honey, we need to talk about this weight gain. You've gained so much weight
Like too
since you,
much,
right.
right?
And she's like, this is dangerous. You really need to cut back on
Wow.
eating. And so towards the end of the pregnancy, I really had to be careful because I had just gained way too much weight. I ate a whole nother
Right.
person.
Yeah, like a small person, granted, but still, that's insane. And I can't believe that your first doctor didn't say anything.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Wow. I mean, honestly, that's like a whole other topic of doctors not like doing their job and not saying what they should say or doing what they should do. But wow, that's insane. And then also your birth, how was that? Was that also easy? Because I feel like the younger you are, though, the easier it naturally is because your body is like bounces back way faster, depending on like your genes and everything. But
So the birth was in itself, it was very hard. I was
wow.
terrified. I got the epidural. And
Uh-huh.
by the end, when I had to start pushing, I couldn't feel anything. So they had,
That's what
and I
I've
was
heard.
pushing wrong. So what ended up happening is they took me off of it and I ended up feeling everything anyways. I
Oh
thought I was
no.
going to die. I thought I was going to die. My body was on fire. It was the most
Oh
horrible
God.
experience ever. It was so bad.
Wow.
At the end, I couldn't even hold him after like I pushed him out. I couldn't even hold him. I held him for like
Mm.
2 seconds and then I was like, take him because I thought I was dying. I thought I was dying. And I'm not being
So
dramatic. I
the
literally thought I was dying.
so the pain didn't subside after you pushed him out?
No, because I was off the epidural.
Right. Ooh. I mean, I feel like everyone has a different experience in that department for sure, which I feel like it could lean like it could help you like decide whether or not you want to have kids or not want to have kids, if you want to have a surrogate, like, all like if you want to adopt, like I feel like for a lot of people, they are a lot of women, they are terrified of giving birth. I mean, I'm one of them for sure. Was it always a dream of yours to be a mom and to have kids? Before like you found out that you were pregnant? Like was that like I'm meant like to be a mom? Because I feel like a lot of women they just know. They're like, I just knew I was meant to be a mother. Did you ever have that feeling?
I mean, I knew at some point I would be a mom, but
Hmm.
I just didn't think it was going to be that soon. And so obviously I was irresponsible, but also I think it wasn't a dream. It wasn't like, oh my God,
Hmm.
I want to get married and this and that.
I have never felt like I need to like be a mom of like my own biological kids. Like that's never been my like end all be all. If
Right.
I find out that I can't have kids and I would have to adopt, or I mean even like do a surrogacy, like even if my eggs are vital but I my body isn't healthy enough to for some reason or something else, then I that would be okay. Like because the way that I grew up was very different with like having a sick mom and like my dad working a lot and it not being the same as like all my other friends. I think that also plays a factor. And because you were so young when you were pregnant, did you ever consider an abortion?
I did.
You
I,
did.
so the conversation was I was speaking with somebody and
Hmm.
they were the first person that I shared it with. And they were like, these are your options. And so if you want to take that other option of going through an abortion, I can support you and I can take you if that's what you want.
Wow.
And so I had those options, but again, I was so young, I didn't know like what was the right thing to do. I was
Hmm.
so scared. And like his dad said to me, like, I support whatever you want to do. Like I'm here for you either way, like just know like I'm here. And then when I was going to have one, and then the next day he
Really?
calls me because I told him I was going to do it. He calls
Hmm.
me and he like changed his mind and he started begging me like you can't do this. Like we're going to be a
Wow.
family. Like I want to have this baby with you. Just like feeding me all this stuff and like just painting
Wow.
a picture for me that we're going to be a family and like we're going to be together and we're going to raise this baby together. Because one of my biggest fears was to be a single mom
Mm.
because my
Makes
mom was
sense.
a single mom with 4 kids.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
saw their struggle that she went through, and I did not want to have that life. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, it ended up happening by him saying all those things. It really made me feel like I felt safe. But then at
Hmm.
the end of the day, he didn't show up. He wasn't around. He
Right.
like didn't show up in his actions. And so I ended up being a single mom anyways.
This might be like controversial, but if you had known, like, say, right after he left, right, that he was going to leave and he was going to make you a single mom, essentially, would you have, if you could, done it I don't like after all, like gotten the abortion after all.
I think at that time, that moment in time, because it was such a struggle, I
Mm.
probably would have. But
Mm.
knowing what I know now, and I've learned so much from this experience, I would not change it
Mm.
for the world. But probably
Right.
back then when I was like 23,
And you had
I
a
would.
baby? Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Because also remember
No,
I
that,
told you I was going through depression and
yeah.
it just wasn't easy. So I was dealing with
Yeah.
a lot and yeah, obviously like if I could change things I would, but like knowing what I know now, I definitely wouldn't.
See, that's powerful. Look at how much you've grown. Look at how much you've learned. That's amazing. With my own experience, like I've never had a pregnancy scare, and nor have I had a boyfriend where I'm like, ooh, I can picture having a kid with him, or like I would want to have kids with him. During my 20s, like it wasn't really a concern of mine that like, ooh, I need to like be careful. It wasn't until my late 20s where more of my friends, both in Norway and in LA, were starting to have kids and talking about it more frequently. Obviously, my friends that have kids talk about babies and pregnancies and
Mm.
that all the time. I mean, because that's their life right now. A lot of them are having their second and third kid. The other day I was at my friend's house, like we had a girls' night, and one of our friends brought her week-old baby with her. And that was her
Oh my
third.
God.
I know,
Her
she was
third
so
baby.
tiny. I know she was so tiny. Like smaller than a freaking doll. And so of course, like there's always talk about it, but it doesn't make me want to have kids more. I'm not on the same timeline as them, and it's taken me, I think, a while, but now I'm like, you know what? It's just not for me right now, and that's okay. Like when we were younger, I was the only one that didn't like kids. Like I will never forget this one time we were at the beach and we were in high school and we were all sitting like on like a line of like chairs in the beach or on the beach. And there were a bunch of families and there was this one kid that everyone was like, "Oh my God, like it's so cute." And I was like, just looking at boys or something instead. And they were like, "Come here," because she was like kind of walking around like playing with people. And who does she come to? Me. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, get away from me. And everyone was like, oh, that is so cute. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, what is happening? That was always me. And I was a dance instructor and I had kids ages 4 to 6. That was the youngest. And I remember I was just like, oh, again today with the kids. I've just never been a fan of kids. Let's just put
Oh
it
my
out
God.
there. And everyone that
Yeah.
like grew up with me, they know that about me. So I think because of that, they're not like, when is it gonna happen? Because they know that I've never been like the baby like freak.
You to elaborate on what does it mean when you say you don't like kids?
I was the one who like growing up and when we were younger, I never liked kids, right? Like I was a dance instructor when I was still in my like when I was a teenager. I didn't like kids until my friends had kids. I liked my friends' kids. And then, of course, as you get older, you just have a different uh, like perspective of kids and different ages. And like, I think you just see them differently and like you think differently because like you can imagine like how it is like being their mom or. So I think it just feels differently when you get older. But yeah, until like I hung out with like my friends' kids that were awesome, and I was like, okay, they're not that bad. But it didn't make me like really want to have kids because of that. But then I'm like, I wouldn't say now that I hate kids. Yeah, no, when I was young, I was like, I don't get the point. Like they're not that cute. But I was also a child myself.
Yeah.
And I don't have siblings. Like I have younger cousins, but we didn't really hang out that much. And I don't like it's different because like your family, you don't really see them as like just kids. You see them as your family.
Yeah. Got it. I think what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, once you didn't like kids, but once you got to experience kids through your friends because you love
Mm-hmm.
your friends. And like it
Mm-hmm.
was just like kids are obviously an extension of your friend. And that
Mm-hmm.
made you have a different perspective because it's like, oh, it's my friend's kid. It's a part of my friend. Like this other human being is an extension of Heather or of
Right.
Sarah or,
Mm-hmm.
of Tuva. Like all
Mm-hmm.
those people, they're an
Yeah.
extension of them. And so it makes
Right.
love them
True.
in a
Yeah.
different way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Did
think
I get
even
it?
with yeah, you did. And even with
Yeah.
I think I think too, like when I started, I guess, hanging out with them, just because like I would be at my friend's house and obviously their kid was there too. I just, you know, ended up spending more time with them. And so I think, yeah, I think maybe I just was uncomfortable around kids because I didn't know how to act. And that played into the fact that I was like, oh, I don't like them because I feel awkward, I feel uncomfortable, you know? And then I
Right.
just got more, because like, why would a kid, I mean, kids are judgmental. Let's say
Right.
that. But,
They I don't
but
think
not
they're
like,
judgmental. I feel like they, at a certain age, they
yeah,
become judgmental as teens, but I feel like they just tell you the truth. They are just
true.
straightforward. Like they're gonna
Oh,
tell
yeah.
you if your shit stinks.
Yeah, no, but I think maybe that was a part of it too. I don't know. But I know it's changed
Hmm.
with like getting older. But yeah, no, it's definitely been that was one of the reasons why I'm like, I don't I mean, I always knew I wanted to have a family, but I'm like not a big fan of kids, so that needs to change first,
Right.
before I have kids.
Okay. So you said you're afraid of having a kid or getting pregnant.
hmm
Can you elaborate more on that? And what is this fear that you have? Is it just being like physically, like you're afraid your body and the changes that are gonna happen to your body, or is it just what's that fear?
I know my biggest fear around pregnancy is the nausea and the throwing up
Mm,
because my biggest phobia in life is throwing up. And it scares me to my core, literally. Um, and I mean, it's not a given that you're gonna throw up every day in your pregnancy. Like my mom didn't have that kind of pregnancy, and my grandmother, like my mom's mom, didn't either. But I just hear about like my friends and how they throw up every single day for like 6 months,
yeah.
and I would rather kill myself. Like that's how big the phobia is. I swear to God. So that really, really scares me. That's why I would rather do a surrogacy if I could afford it, if that was an option. Um, and when it comes to the actual like giving birth, I don't know that part. I don't know if I would that doesn't scare me as much because I know that you can just I would be like, give me all the drugs. That would be me, Epidural, all the things. Like if I could be on like is it did I just hear this or have people like used laughing gas when they're giving birth? No.
I've never heard of that, but that would be
Because
hilarious.
right? Like if that was I'd be like, sign me up. I would, that would be so hilarious. And if one place would do that, it would be America. They would
Right.
never do that here. They put you down to sleep when you go to the dentist. They would never do that here unless it's like an actual surgery, you know?
Honestly, like giving birth is expensive enough, and to just add an extra cost of laughing gas is not worth it. I think what it's like 10,000 to pop a baby
Uh,
out.
Yeah, that's insane. I think it's more. I think it's because I asked one of my friend's friends who probably gave birth already, but this is a while ago. We were out to dinner and I was like, how much is it now? Because I know it's last time I asked one of my other friends in LA, that was a while ago, and I think she was like, it's 20,000 or something or more.
Oh,
I'm like,
without
what? And
insurance?
yes, I think that was without insurance. But I think, and here's my thing. Like I want to end up in California, right? Like that's where I want my ashes to be buried. Like that's just where my soul belongs. But I think I would probably give birth here because it's free.
Right.
Unless like I have a very wealthy husband, which hopefully, but because just sounds like how like wouldn't you have to be in debt for like years after giving birth? Like if you don't have health insurance, like that sounds horrible.
Yeah, I don't thank God at the time, like I didn't have to deal with that. And I think it was
Mm,
obviously cheaper back then.
right.
But I honestly don't know how people do it. And I don't know how people have multiple kids. I really
Yeah.
don't. I really don't.
And like they're struggling to make ends meet and they still have like yeah, I don't either. It's insane. So now that you already have Mason and you're like in your 30s, does your family pressure you to have more kids? Do you feel a certain internal pressure to have more kids even though you're single? Like how do you feel about that?
I think they'll make comments here and there and like, are you gonna have another one? But there's never a pressure to. I feel
Okay.
like there's still, I feel like my family, again, it's like the
Mm,
career driven side of my culture of where it's kind of like we want you to be stable and have
mm,
income to be able to support you and just making sure that we're secure with our finances is more important than having
mm.
another baby.
Okay. I like that. I like that because then it's like, well, you need to put yourself first in a way than like just procreating.
Right. But I also
Yeah.
think because I am single and I'm not
Hmm.
married, they don't pressure
Hmm.
me. So if I
Oh.
was married, like when I was in a relationship, my long
Hmm.
relationship, they asked me if I was gonna have another kid. And the question is always, am I gonna get married? When am I gonna get married?
Right.
So
Wow.
like that just hasn't happened. So the whole asking me if I'm gonna have another kid is like out of the question right now.
Oh, interesting. Because here it's very like untraditional in terms of like the timeline of when to get married and have kids and move in together and all of that. Because most of my friends, they moved in together first, then had a kid, and then got married.
Mm,
So it's
yeah,
not that common to like I have a few friends who got married before they had kids, but it's really like the most common order has been to move in together, like buy a house, have kids, and then get married, or not get married and just like have a household with like a family, or yeah, just
yeah.
like live together as a family,
I
which is
think for
nice because
here,
then it's like the pressure is off a little bit.
no, a lot. I think here it's more of to get married first and then you can move in together and then have kids.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think like in the past I've always pushed like I need to get married, I want to get married, like my time clock is ticking. I need to get married. Especially I've been in
Hmm.
this relationship for a long time. Like it
Right.
needs to fucking happen. At this point in time, I'm even questioning, do I even want to get married at this point? And again, I haven't
Oh,
met the
that's
right
sad.
person.
Well, I was gonna say it's probably gonna change once you meet like your person. And I feel like the older we get, the quicker things go, unless you're I mean, because you met your ex when you were younger. But like if you'd met
Yeah.
him now, things would probably move along quicker.
Right. It also just depends on the person and what they want and if
Yeah,
we
yeah,
share
for
the same
sure.
values. So,
So now, obviously, there are many pros and cons, but of both having kids and not having kids. And I feel like a lot of people, like women, say that once they have kids, they understand what life is truly about, and they feel like they're the strongest they've ever been, like in both terms of like giving birth versus like carrying the child for 9 months and like that new like the protective like mama bear energy feeling that they have, and they say like life has a new meaning and they never felt so much pure love before in their lives. Like can you like relate to all these? I know that I see you laughing, but like can you relate to these feelings? Because like obviously for someone who doesn't have kids, it's like, okay, awesome. But like, I wonder, is that how it is? And like,
Cool.
would you say like those are like the biggest rewards of being a mom? And like, is it different now that Mason is older? And how do you feel it's been? Like your like rewards.
I think it's an experience, right? You just learn so much about yourself. And again, like you learn so much patience, honestly.
Mm.
Like
Hmm.
having a kid just tests you on a whole nother level. And it really pushes you to your limits of just like I feel like I want to give up every second and I just don't know what to do because also your life is all about them. Like my
Hmm.
life is not about me anymore, it's about them,
Hmm.
right? And so now that he's older, I'm transitioning to my life being about me again, if that makes
Because
sense.
he's more independent. Yeah.
Right. And so I can get where they come from. Um, but I think that you definitely learn what unconditional love is. Like you
Hmm.
truly learn the definition of unconditional love. Like there's
Hmm.
nothing else that has taught me unconditional love in this lifetime than Mason.
Wow.
And I don't know how to explain it. Um, Again, it's like that maternal instinct that you get,
Hmm.
and it's definitely an experience that I feel like everybody should have. And if you want to have that or not. Because
Right.
also there are pros and cons to everything, and you have
Right.
a different experience in life than us.
Hmm.
Which, you know, I don't know. I guess if you chose not to have kids, you, I don't want to say you wouldn't have that experience, but you definitely
It's
wouldn't have
different.
that experience.
Right. Would you say that it's made you a better person to be a mom?
Being a mom has shaped me into who I am today. I don't know if I'm better or worse, but I do want to say that I'm better. But
Hmm.
Um, definitely those experiences have helped me mature faster. Especially,
Hmm.
I was pregnant and had my kid in my 20s. It helped me really grow old, but not mature faster for sure.
Right.
And like
Yeah.
he's already 12, so I've already had all of those experiences that like people in my 30s, like they're just having kids, they haven't
Yeah.
experienced yet. I've already
Yeah.
gone through that. And so I don't know if it's made me better. I just had those experiences sooner than
Yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah. No, but I mean, just in general, like as a reward, do you feel like, and that's what I meant, like being a mother has made you a better person? That's what I meant.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, if I didn't have him, I don't know where I'd be right now. I'd probably still be going out and partying and like being lost and having no direction in my life. So definitely it has made my life a lot better.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, just off of like what you just said now, when you were like, I probably would still be partying. As someone who was partying a lot in their early 20s, like late teens, early 20s, and we're the same age, you're a year older than me only, you would have grown out of that too eventually without having a kid. Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a completely different route than what you probably would have taken if you hadn't gotten Mason. So I know, I mean, we will never know what would have happened. Yeah, so for me, not having kids, I feel like the rewards part is pretty obvious. It's hashtag freedom. Freedom. In like all aspects of life, I guess, because like I'm free to live wherever in the world I want to. And I mean, I guess a pretty good example of that because I've lived across continents multiple times and I didn't have anyone else to worry about except for myself. And even with just me, it's been hard. So with a kid, I couldn't even like it would be impossible. I couldn't. And
Hmm.
also I wouldn't have to stay within a specific school district or close to my family because it's the nice thing to do, or like you need the help, right? Or, close to like if you're single like yourself, like not have to stay close to the baby daddy, like if you have a co-parenting relationship situation. And that's hard too because like what if you want to move somewhere? Like for you it would be harder, but for me I could just go wherever I want. Um I also don't have to worry about like financial freedom because I can spend all the money I make on myself. I don't have to like set aside money for college or think about like, oh, I need to afford a bigger place because my kid needs an extra room, or I need to, buy them clothes for school or whatever, or like go on play. Like I know
Pay
how
for the
often
school bus.
Mason pay for the school bus. Like I know how often like your kid asks you for money for things. You're like, can I have this game or can I go get boba? Like all those things that it adds up. Um, and I can go out with my friends as much as I want to. I can go on all the dates I want to without having to worry about like, oh, to bring someone home or to have a party at my house or to have an after party at my house, not having to plan to have a babysitter or, for how long to have a babysitter or, like all these things. And I mean, you
Hit the nail on the
can't.
head, darling.
You can't more and more like with as the year passes because he's getting older. But yeah, exactly. Like that is like the freedom of not having a child is like it's completely like night and day, right?
Yeah. I think now I'm transitioning into a different period where I have more freedom now,
Yeah.
but now the financial aspect is getting larger
Oh,
because he's older,
yeah.
he wants more expensive things. Social media plays a huge influence on like the things that he wants. And
Hmm.
so it's definitely different now versus when he was younger. And yeah, all that stuff that you said is absolutely 100% true. Like my freedom has, like, I haven't had that much freedom like forever. And I always
I
have to
mean, the
worry
first
about
time,
something.
wasn't it the first time you had like any type of freedom was when you came to visit me in Norway for 10 days?
I know.
You just need more vacation away
I
from him.
do.
Uh,
It was the first time that I actually planned something. And because I'm co-parenting now, which this is a new space for me, where we have an agreement, obviously, for him to take my son, and he actually helps me with the dogs as well. So, yeah,
Got it.
now I actually get to experience a healthy co-parenting relationship where
Yeah.
I've never had that experience. And so now I'm just like, what do I do with myself? What do I do with the time that I have? No, I swear to God, I don't know
Yeah,
what to
I
do with
know.
myself. I'm just like, okay, I
I
need to have
know.
a
I've
hobby.
seen that. Yeah.
So now I'm just really understanding the importance of taking care of yourself because I see
Mhm.
these helicopter moms. And I'm just like, dude, when they get
Hmm.
older, I feel so sorry for them, but for you, you're gonna have a hard time. You're gonna have a real hard time.
You mean for the parents or for the moms to have a hard time because they're so like you said, around and on top of their kids 24/7 that once they don't have that, they're gonna feel like a limb is missing type of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, and
I feel
like,
like you should
yeah.
focus more on your relationship with your husband
Hmm.
than like being so dead set on your kids, which they don't really need that much attention from you as they get older. And I think it's
Right.
important to make sure that you maintain like your relationship with your partner and the
Hmm.
relationship you have with yourself. That way you have a balance between everything. And nobody is kind of like really dependent on you for
Hmm.
the love, for the attention, for everything. So
Right.
I think it's good to have a balance.
Sorry, they're like,
Mason just texted me and he said, Mom, can I have $10? I just gave him money yesterday too.
oh my God, stop. What are some challenges that you face? And what would you say would be like daily challenges? And what are the long-term challenges?
Hold on really quick. Let me just send him $10.
AKA, this will be a daily challenge.
This is the
He's
daily challenge
always
where
asking for money.
I have to like we've talked many times about allowance and putting things into place and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but we're still in this process of learning.
Yeah.
Because
Does he?
also part of me just wants to like give, 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 give.
Right.
I want him to be
But then
happy.
he, but then he gets spoiled, and that's also a hard balance, you know?
I know, but it's difficult when he goes to school in a wealthier area. So
Yeah.
obviously the kids are with two parents where they have two incomes. And yeah, it's difficult. But anyways, okay, what's the question?
That was literally, that could have been your answer to my question.
Oh,
Because I
okay.
said, what are some challenges that you face as like a mom, also a single mom, and what would be like considered a daily challenge, something that you're like every single day? And what are some like long-term challenges? And I feel like
Okay.
the co-parenting that you just mentioned, like
Okay.
I mean you already kind of mentioned too. And then now that you said the thing with the money, like that could be like a daily
Yeah.
challenge. But if there's something else that you could think of.
Okay. I think one of the long-term challenges is, yeah, the co-parenting aspect, because who knows what co-parenting looks like truly. I think
Hmm.
co-parenting goes family by family, and you guys set the rules of what that looks like. And so one thing that I have faced is just trying to see what that looks like and not really have any expectations, but having expectations at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, but again, it all comes down to communication and how the two parents communicate, and
Hmm.
like just putting the child first always,
Right.
and having the child lead. So whatever, if Mason wants to go to his place, if he doesn't, we have him lead of what he wants versus
Hmm.
like what I want or what my ex wants.
Hmm.
So I think that is part of
Interesting.
like the long-term challenges of just like the communication and the hard conversations that we have to have.
Hmm. Interesting that you say that you let your child lead because I feel like if I ask a lot of my other friends that, well, they're not like co-parenting as exes, they're co-parenting as like, partners, like that they're together or married. But regardless of that, I feel like they probably would say that they lead and like their child follows. But maybe has that changed? Was it different when he was younger? Or has it always
No,
been that way?
so we've gone through therapy, and so this is
Mhm.
what the therapist recommended is that the child lead.
Interesting.
That way he also has a choice and a voice, and
Hmm.
a say so of what his life looks like, right?
Hmm.
And I think the whole drama could be around what the parents want and what they think is
Hmm.
best. So going based off of what the child wants, that's what we're following. And so we
Hmm.
got professional advice from three different therapists. And so that is what everyone recommended is that the child lead, and
Wow.
we just follow suit, and all the conversations that we have are about the child.
That's awesome. Yeah, and also maybe she or he recommended it based off of like what you guys' needs as individuals and as exes also would fit the best. Like, I mean, there probably could be so many different reasons for why she suggested that you let the kid lead, and I think there's not a size like that fits all, you know? But it's interesting because I don't think I've heard that. But I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But what about like the daily challenges? I mean, you say, and I knew that obviously that Mason goes to a pretty wealthy school, and I mean, you also do well for yourself, but obviously like it's different when there's a household that has two incomes.
My life revolves around Mason and my dogs. I have two dogs. So I have to make sure that I'm up on time that we're all
Mhm.
fed. We all have lunch. The dogs get walked. I like my life is very structured. And if I don't get up in time, then everybody else is going to suffer because of my
Mhm.
lacking. And so I have to make sure that I'm up on time. And what I've come to do is make sure that I actually wake up early enough to take care of my own self, right?
Mhm.
Because I have to take care of myself
Smart.
first before I can take care of everyone else. I get up usually like during school year, I'll be up at 5 o'clock.
I
Five
know.
o'clock,
Crazy.
I have an hour and a half to myself. And what that looks like, I can share in a different
Mhm.
video,
Yeah.
but that is like my self-care time.
Yeah.
And
Smart.
so I have that, and then the rest of my morning is like catered to my kid and my
Yeah.
dogs. And
Right.
then right after that, I just like go straight to work or I go for a workout, whatever I plan. And then after school, I have to go pick up my kid, and then it's like dinner, and then continue to work if I have to, and then take care of myself again, and then my dogs.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
my days are about them
Fact. Yeah.
mainly, and
Whereas
then
my days
about
are
like
about me.
providing. Exactly. So that
Mine
is
every
what my
day.
day looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, what are your challenges of not having kids?
None. I'm kidding. No, I think for me, I feel like the older I get, the thing that I think about is, okay, I'm already 33, and the older I get, the older I'll be when like I once I have kids. And then once they start growing, how old am I gonna be once they, go to high school or get married, whatever. Like I'm thinking like long term of like the older I get, the older I'm always gonna be. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that makes
Um,
total sense. And
whether,
I want to say to that
mm,
challenge, don't let it be a challenge because I'm one of the youngest moms at my school and I'm always
mm,
one of the youngest moms.
yeah,
And all the moms there are like in their 40s and 50s. And so
right.
they actually went the route you are on, where they lived their life. They traveled, they did all these things, and then
And
they
I was
got
gonna say
married,
that
and
too.
then they had
Yeah.
kids.
I think also it does help that it's more common to have kids later in life. And there are so many options that makes it possible to have kids when you're older. And I think, like you said, with like focusing more on like career and everything, that is becoming more socially like acceptable, you know? So it does help, but do I think about it? Yeah, I do sometimes. Because, I would want to be like a young parent on one end, but on the other end, I'm like, I really don't want to have kids right now, you know?
Life is not just about procreating, which
Yeah,
others would
disagree.
probably yeah disagree.
Hmm.
But honestly, it's your life. Live it however you want to live. If you want to have kids, have kids. If you don't want to have kids, don't have kids. You create the life you want to live and don't listen to anybody else of what they want or have them like project whatever it is, their insecurities onto you of like, you should have kids, you should not, or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think we just live in a society where it's acceptable to give unsolicited advice on how people should live their lives, Um, which I hate that. Honestly, I do. Let's talk about some trends because I feel like, in our society right now, it has become, like I said, more acceptable, I guess, to like have kids later and to put yourself first, put your career first. And yes, I guess it is more common in like bigger cities, but all over the world, not just like in the US. And I also love that people are celebrating women when they have kids like later in life.
I also think it's different when it depends on what environment you're in, right? Like I
Hmm.
said, Mason goes to a wealthier school, and so those people were raised differently. Like they went to
Hmm.
college, they're well educated. And so I feel like that also plays a huge factor into the age that you decide to have kids and start your
Hmm.
life that way.
Hmm. True. That is true. Especially like in those big cities all over the world, like not just in, well, especially I guess like in LA and New York and London and like even here in Oslo and Paris, whatever. There is that like lifestyle too, like that fast-paced lifestyle that not always a child necessarily fits in that well, and people might want to just keep living that lifestyle and not having anything that can change it drastically. Like, I'm not saying that you can't have a big city life that is still fast-paced with a kid, but like you said, like your life isn't about you when you have kids, it's about them. And so I think that, I mean, it would be easier to move somewhere smaller once you do have kids because of that reason. And I mean, that's totally okay too. I have heard multiple people say, you know what? I really don't want to bring a child into the world we live in today. And I respect that so much. And I kind of agree a little bit because it's 2024. And how many wars has been happening over the past like just couple of years? I mean, it's insane. And I'm not even gonna get into everything, but the turmoil we're in right now is like on the brink of fucking World War III. And
Right.
I would never in my wildest dreams have thought that we would be literally going back in time. Like
Hmm.
not we're not getting anywhere and it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
So I kind of get it. Like why would you bring a child into this world? Like I kind of get it,
Yeah. I for
you
me,
know?
I think um why all that is valid, but at the same time, like it's your life, and if you want that to stop you from having an experience, and
Yeah.
again, we only have one life to live, and so if you want that to stop you from having that experience, then only you can choose that. So I
Yeah.
think you just have to consider, yes, all these things are happening around us, but at the same time, what do you want your life to look like? And if your kid ends up being in this environment with all the wars and everything, then it's just part of their story, you know?
Yeah. And another thing, there are a lot of both fertility and infertility problems. Well, infertility problems and also just talk about fertility in general that has been more prominent now than ever. And I feel like women especially are extremely luckily now aware and knowledgeable about infertility and any um all the options that you have if you want to have kids and all the different proactive things you can do. And also any like illnesses that you can have as a woman that nobody had even heard about, like even 10 years ago. Like the most common one would be like egg freezing or IVF or like donor eggs or sperm or surrogacy, like we've talked about. And there are also like fertility drugs that you can take, like if you're getting older and you're like a little, low on eggs. And not to mention that the research for infertility, is growing every single year. And, illnesses such as like I've never heard so much about like endometriosis or PCOS, which is um, polycystic ovary syndrome, for those who doesn't know that, low progesterone hormone levels, or like, different types of contraceptives that maybe people haven't heard about, or like, and then also abortion is a huge topic, which we're not going to get into because of, you know, the world we live in right now. But it's amazing how far we've come in this. Like, I hear talk about that stuff all the time and everywhere. And it's literally saving lives because women died over these things like literally 10 or less years ago. And so that too is something that I think we've just come such a long way and it's only getting like better.
As, you know, medicine advances, I think there's different ways to help not necessarily fix, but yes, fix infertility. And
Mm-hmm.
some people, and again, that in itself is a journey, and everyone has a different experience. And
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't know what that's like, but I have heard other people's stories
Like, so Heather, to have or not to have kids?
to have kids. And I'm going to tell you,
Why?
again, I'm a young mom, and so I get to relive my childhood again. I've had the experience of sharing the things that I loved growing up with my son. And like when he was younger, we would go to Disneyland all the time. We would go to all these amusement parks, and we just have so much fun. And even now, as he's older,
Mm-hmm.
we get to do, we get to go bowling. We get to go, I don't know, go get to ride the roller coasters and do like fun things. And like now
Mm-hmm.
he's into fashion. We get to go shopping together. It's interesting to see how he grows up and to see what his styles, what his likes are. And then also how I've contributed to, him and his life and how
Mm-hmm.
like who he is as a young adult. It's just really fun to see. And also, again, it comes with challenges, but I think as a parent, you learn a lot about yourself through your kid. And again, it
Yeah.
teaches you patience. But honestly, it's so much fun. It's so fun.
Okay. So the answer is yes, for sure, for you.
Yeah. Henrietta, to have
Mm.
or to not have kids?
I will say to have, but when you're ready. Because I do like eventually, like I picture myself as having a big family. And I do want that, but not yet. There's still so much I want to do and experience. Like, I still haven't met my person yet. And when I do, I still want to have like a few years with him before starting a family. And that is, I guess more important to me than having kids sooner. But yes, I do, like, I really do want to have a family. But do I want to, again, like the main thing for me is it's not end all be all to have my own biological children.
Right.
But I want a family. Yes, 100%. I do.
So I know you said you haven't found your partner yet. I also want to tell our listeners that even if you don't have a partner,
True.
you are able to raise your kid on your own. And I am a prime example of that. Okay. You can raise your kid on your own. It is possible.
Yes. Yep.
And like you can create the love and support around you by choosing the people that you want to be in your life. And so you always will have family if you allow it, and you'll always have support if you allow it. So even if you
True.
don't have a partner, it doesn't mean you can't have a kid.
I was gonna say also you don't even need to have another partner to have a kid because there are options. You can go to a sperm bank. Or,
Exactly.
you can adopt. So there are options, like you said, if you don't have a partner or if you don't even want one, it is completely possible. And with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. We hope that you enjoyed hearing about the many different paths of parenthood and the choice of whether or not to have kids. And whether you're navigating single motherhood like Heather or is happily child-free like myself, remember that everyone's journey is unique and also valid. And there's no one-size-fits-all answer to when it comes to having kids, and that's perfectly okay. Whatever stage you're at, whatever choices you're making, know that you're not alone. We're all figuring this out together, and your happiness and fulfillment is what truly matters. Next week, we'll be talking about a topic that is very important to both of us: mental health and therapy. And we each have our personal experiences with both, and we can't wait to share them with you. All right, thanks, guys. See you next week. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening. We hope you got some takeaways from today's episode.
You can also follow us on Instagram and YouTube at 30s Unfiltered, or email us at 30sunfiltered@gmail.com.
please leave us a like, comment, and subscribe to our channels. See you next time!